Hello, this is the second part of my video about my stay in Meathop TB Sanatorium in the 1930s. I found a bit of information about it, other than the sort of recollections that I put into the first video. Apparently it was opened in 1891 as a convalescent home, and then in 1900 it was converted to be a TB Sanatorium. It was called the Westmoreland TB Sanatorium. And apparently there were spaces for 88 men and boys, 59 women and girls, segregated apparently. There were actually, the sections were some distance apart. I'd often wondered who paid for it. Did my father have to pay, or this was years before the National Health Service was set up, but I found out that if you lived in Westmoreland, it was free, so that was good. Anybody else, it was 2 guineas a week. So that's, in modern money, it's £2.10 a week. That would be quite a lot in the early 20th century, when people were on about £5 a week, so quite a lot. Okay, it seems that the normal expected stay of anyone in the home, in the hospital, was 6 months. So obviously I stayed a bit longer than that. And they were on an average 40 deaths a year, which is quite a lot from that number. It was closed in the 1990s because with modern drugs, better housing conditions, better life generally, there was no more TB in the country. I think it's actually back again now, but not to the same extent. So, last year we had a family holiday in Grange-over-Sands, which is quite near to Meathop, and my daughter Kirsty and I, we went up to Meathop to see what was happening, what had happened to the place. And we found that where there is now a caravan site, there was still the old nurses' home, very well built structure, will last for years. So that was still being used as a sort of reception area and living quarters, I think, for the site staff. Further on, there was a place that we were told had been where the doctors set up their practice. That was now at a hotel. We had a long conversation with the lady there, who, although it was out of hours, gave us a cup of tea and told us about what had happened over the years. And further on, where the wards had been, it's now it's either holiday lets or where people live permanently. And we did actually see the morgue. Which had obviously been quite well used, although it was quite a small building. So, we did actually talk to quite a few people while we were there. It was very interesting, and they had 1 or 2 old photographs as well that we saw. I have lots of photographs of the place where we took, but the trouble is my printer is not working and I just cannot cope with the technology, so I'll have to hold up a picture. So that is a photograph that I got off the internet of some of the wards. These are obviously the women's wards, because you can see the women in bed. They've obviously wheeled the beds out into the area that's covered by the veranda, and there are 1 or 2 visitors there and some nurses. But as I remember it, those were exactly like the wards that we were in, that the boys were in, with the sliding roof and the snow sliding off onto the garden. And that has sliding doors that, again, were hardly ever shut. So that was how it was. And I took a photograph of the bar where the men had been. The trouble is, as you can see, my printer is run out of ink, so it's printed it in a very pretty pink colour. But that hut there is exactly the same as I remember it. Lots of huts in the grounds where the men stayed, and panels in the side so that they got plenty of fresh air. It's obviously now a shed that somebody's using in their garden. The other thing I got from the archives at Kendal was the pages referring to my various. Now, I did sign a copyright thing for this, so I'll not hold it up very close, but these are the reports every month during my stay there with various notes. Obviously, because it was a TB hospital, this is where people would have their chests examined. Mine was in the stomach, so all I've got is a little note at the bottom. All they seem to have done, there was no medicine, no treatment, except for fresh air and good food, I suppose. Depends what you mean by good food. That's my discharge certificate, telling me that during the time I was there, I'd gained 7 3/4 pounds. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing for a 7-year-old boy over 9 months. Still, at least I gained rather than lost. So, yeah, that's about all I think that I need to say. It's just interesting that over all those years ago, 80 odd years ago, I've still got access to my medical records. Been trying for ages to get them, and suddenly I found that there was this archives place in Kendal, and they were so helpful. So that's it. Now, whatever treatment I did have or didn't have, I must say it seems to have worked, because I'm still here 86 years later.